The insurance accounting standard IFRS 17 was welcomed by many insurance practitioners. But what will happen when it eventually does come into force? I'm Yvette Essen for AM Best TV, and joining me is Tony Silverman, Associate Director of Analytics, to talk through a recent report we've published on IFRS 17. Stepping back, first of all, can you explain to me what exactly is IFRS 17 and what is its purpose?
IFRS 17 is a new accounting standard which is intended to bring more market-related values to the insurance liability number in accounts, and also for that to be consistent across territories. And it's necessary because the current practice, which is IFRS 4, introduced in 2005, actually grandfathered local gaps that were in place then. And these vary, this means that different accounting standards are actually used in different countries. And these are consolidated. If a company operates across different territories, then these different accounting standards will all be consolidated into the single set of accounts.
Why was it delayed? I know that many people in the insurance market were happy about this, but what were the reasons for this postponement?
The postponement was largely a result of industry lobbying, and it's a very good question as to why the industry had a problem with it. What is the problem in this digital age? Why was it difficult to implement? And to understand that, I think you have to go back to what's happening at the moment. And that is that insurers have typically managed their business using fund level data for assets and liabilities. That's what's used in IFRS 4, but IFRS 17 requires new calculations to be performed at closer to the policy level, certainly for groups of policies by year of issue. And those results of those calculations, that data, are not there at the moment, and they're going to have to be newly done and audited. And it's actually not going to be possible even to recreate that data for the existing policies on the books of insurers, to go back into history and do that, and how they would have evolved over the period since the issue, particularly of longer term life insurance policies. So the transition to IFRS 17 is going to involve approximations for historical data when the time comes.
And when is that time likely to come? What are the next steps?
As it stands, IFRS 17 will come into force for accounting periods beginning 1st of January 2022 and after. But it does still need to be adopted by the authorities in each territory. And now that it's been delayed and reopened for some small changes, the result of that, the accounting standard that results from that, does still need to be adopted for it to come into force.
Now, the report that we've published mentions 3 approaches under the standard. Can you very briefly summarise each of those approaches?
Well, the first one, the basic one, is the so-called building block approach. And that, as we've touched on, is going to take a fresh, up-to-date market value look at values each year. And once you do that, particularly for the longer-term life insurance policies, and you're looking at the value over the period, over the lifetime of the policy, and you do capitalise what have been regarded up to now as future profits. Those profits will not be taken on day one. They will be treated as a liability, so-called contractual service margin, or CSM, and that CSM will be amortised into profit over the lifetime of the policy. The slight difficulty comes that, of course, actual experience will diverge from that expected when you assess the CSM. And to the extent that that's due to investment return, that will go to profit immediately. And insurance type changes looking into the future will be offset against the CSM and change the profit that comes from there over the future years. So that's the first one. And the second one, which has perhaps not had as much public coverage, is the so-called variable fee arrangement, which we think will be extremely important particularly for the life sector. And the difference really there is that investment variances are offset against the CSM instead of going wholly against profit in the year that they arise. And the third one is for the so-called premium allocation approach, is for those policies where it's not necessary to look so far ahead. They're all, for retail non-life, 12-month policies. We're not going to start calculating a CSM. We'll continue with something quite close to the existing accounting approach using a so-called UPR, an unearned premium reserve.
When IFRS finally does come into force, will we use the data, and how will we use that data, if so, with regards to our own rating model?
We will be using the data, and where companies produce IFRS reporting, that is the basic input data for our quantitative model. And we do adjust that because we're interested in the economic realities underlying these companies, and particularly for the life insurance sector, we can be making quite substantial adjustments to those numbers at the moment. But with the principles-based targeting of market values that IFRS 17 represents, we do anticipate that the adjustments to those numbers will be considerably less than what we do at the moment, and that will therefore, I think, be good for the transparency, in fact, of the rating process, with considerably reduced adjustments to the accounting data.
A copy of AM Best report looking at IFRS 17 can be found on ambest.com. For AM Best TV, I'm Yvette Essen.